Welcome back to Division I Rejects after a 1-week hiatus. I was going to say, I know you missed us, but I just hope you missed us and that you actually realized that we didn't upload an episode for a week. No worries, though. We're back. Episode 153. This is March 12th. My hiatus was well warranted. I did about 45 miles in the Grand Canyon. Nothing football, nothing podcast related. It was splendid. Y'all should try it sometime. The outdoors is fantastic, but that's not actually what we're talking about tonight. We've got some way better topics, believe that or not. Carter St. John, who's a name that you'll probably recognize. We had him on during the playoff run for the Alma Scots. He joins us here tonight, but he's not talking mostly about the Scots and what they're doing down there in Alma, Michigan. He has started a nonprofit organization called QBs versus Cancer, and I don't want to give most of it away. I want him to do most of the talking because he is the man that has really brought this to life. But I'll tell you this, it's pretty fucking awesome what he's got going on and bringing in all these Division III quarterbacks towards a common cause and a common goal. He's already generated some great funds, and I think the experiences that he's going to make for a lot of people and families is going to be well worth it. So stick around for that conversation. I'm excited to talk about it. Also, in much lesser news with him, the Alma Scots are going to Scotland here in about a month to go play a football game across the pond, which is really cool. We talk about that. Potentially Coach Couch suiting up in that game. And also them making a trip up here to Northern Michigan. They got a D2 opponent on the schedule this year. So a lot of things happening for the Alma Scots coming off a really great playoff run in the Division III tournament. But speaking of D3, we did it a couple weeks ago with Jimmy. We went through some D3 prospects that we think have a great chance to play in the pros. We've got more today with a chance to go pro, and we're not like ranking them. The guys in week 1 aren't above the guys in week 2. We just found more guys, and you guys gave us some great suggestions of guys that we needed to cover. So we pull out the tape, pull out the highlights, talk about these guys, some of their accolades, what they got going on here a little bit later in the show. I'm going to do the same thing with D2 prospects. I went through and found some D2 prospects that I know are being really highly talked about right now. There's going to be more. We'll keep doing it up until the draft. We're going to continue to highlight a lot of these small school products and guys that we think have a chance to go play football at the next level. Finally, though, tonight, really cool, kind of your heart warmer for tonight. We got a special senior night surprise for a men's basketball player at the D2 level. It's not football, but you're going to watch this video, and I love including stuff like this because, man, I just watched this and I read the story about it. It's something that special just really doesn't even do it justice. Stick around. That'll be towards the end of the episode. If you want to get to any part of the episode, use those timestamps bottom of the screen, fast forward to any piece of that, and then get the hell out of here, or stick around, listen to the whole thing. I would appreciate you either way. Thank you very much for tuning in the first place. If you're watching on YouTube, hello. Do not forget to subscribe. About to hit 1,100 on there. Otherwise, don't forget, get us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it. Follow us on the socials, Twitter, Insta, TikTok. Back on TikTok, baby. We're back. Posting some short reels and things like clips and things of that nature. But I appreciate you all tuning in. Let's get right into that conversation with Carter out of Alma. Joining the show tonight, a man who has graced us with his presence before. He can sling the rock. He's done it at a very high level. But today, here to talk about more than just football. It's Carter St. John. What's up, dude?
Absolutely. How are you doing? Thanks for having me on again.
Hey, glad to get you back on here whenever I can find an excuse to do so. Today just happened to be a really easy reason to get you on here because you've got such an awesome thing going on. And I guess before I just babble on about it, you tell me about QBs versus Cancer and everything you got going on over there.
Okay, so the idea is QBs versus Cancer is I tried to reach out to, I believe it's 242 Division III teams.
Wow.
Tried to reach to all of their 242 quarterbacks, starting quarterbacks for each team. And it was kind of hard just because through Instagram and Twitter, you have to be following me back. Otherwise, it goes to the little request box. And so a lot of the guys still were able to see it. And so the idea is Division III quarterbacks host kind of a training session, however many training sessions they want for high school kids, middle school kids, whatever age they want to work with for $25 a session. And those kids will come to their school, or I found it a lot easier to have these quarterbacks do it over the summer, just because everyone's busy now with spring ball and school and working jobs and stuff like that. So I think probably about 90% of the guys are doing it over the summer, and then all the money they raise from those sessions and also donations around the community go to the cancer charity of their choice. And so I think my idea in my mind was to have them pick a cancer society that's near to their school. Just so it's more local and those people near them kind of feel those benefits more. But again, we're trying to raise money for cancer, so it doesn't matter where you're sending the money as long as you're sending money to help the cause.
And that's kind of what I got out of it too, was like, this is something you can make it as personal as you want to make it, right? You've got someone in your close friends or family or community that's affected by one of the many forms of cancer out there, then this is your opportunity to get out and to really feel like you're making that difference and kind of do something. Because I know that's something that's very difficult. And as someone who, my mom just had surgery to remove carcinoma, a certain kind of breast cancer last week, excuse me. And that's something that it's very odd when she gives me that news and I'm sitting there, and I'm sure so many people have been in these shoes before me, and it's like you feel helpless and there's not really much that you can do. So this is, in my opinion, just a great way for these guys to take something they're already doing and, one, to raise money towards a fantastic cause, but two, to give back to other people and to pass on their skill sets in a game that has brought joy to so many people. So bravo to you, dude. This is awesome. I think it's such a pure idea, but you and I got chatting before this about, even when you have an idea like this, there are so many little pieces and things fundamentally that you have to set up. This is not something that you thought about maybe over the weekend or over spring break. This has been sitting in the back of your mind for a while, right?
Yeah, so I really kind of thought about it over the offseason, really kind of as soon as we lost in the playoffs. But it's just something I think, thankfully, in the Mount Union win, a lot of people kind of realized where Alma is and kind of looked more into it. And I kind of want to use that platform of like maybe people will know who I am. And so if I reach out to more people,
Yeah.
they'll be more enticed to kind of come along with me and try to help out a lot. And again, I can't say it enough that all the guys that are helping out. I believe I counted 29, maybe 30, including myself. I'm not a great at counting, but I think that's what I had so far. And so I wouldn't be able to do it without all of those guys.
Yeah, and it's awesome. I've got it up here. Your website, you display each and every quarterback right now that is currently signed up and available to give some of these sessions. But man, you've got a good number going on right now. What was the initial feedback like? What have the responses been like from the guys who I would assume have been all about this movement and really excited to be a part of it?
Yeah. Initially, I started just talking to the MIAA guys, just to kind of feel out what they thought, and a lot of it was just, "Hey, I'd love to do this. Please get me involved, and let me know about the next step." Everyone's been super positive about it. Even guys that say no, it's just they're too busy. They can't take time out of their day to.
Yep,
That sounds bad, but they can't. They're just way too busy with
I get
everything.
it. No, I get it.
It is a lot of time to take up, but I really appreciate everyone that, like, even if you say no, I really appreciate your support and stuff like that. So,
Absolutely, dude. No, that's really neat stuff. And so now talk about a little more about the timeline kind of deal. So you had said earlier that a lot of these guys, the summer will kind of be the target area where it's high school and kind of middle school quarterbacks, athletes, right? Kind of that range is what you're looking at to bring in for these kind of training sessions.
yeah, so the initial idea I had in my mind was everyone's at school now. They have a field that they could probably try to utilize. I
Yep.
didn't even think about spring breaks and stuff like that for all the high school kids. But so what I did is I made a flyer and I sent it out to a bunch of the high school coaches in the area, or Coach Couch sent it out for me just because recruiting and stuff, he knows them.
Got good
Um,
connections for sure.
and so I suggested that to a lot of guys. I think a lot of them did that. But yeah, just people are so busy now with school, jobs, and spring ball now starting up that it's a lot easier for guys to go home, maybe use their high school field, and be able to do these training sessions. It really doesn't matter. Whenever they can get the training sessions in, all that matters is they're doing it.
Yeah, 100%. And that's something that I saw too reading on the website is you've got a minimum for each of these guys to make sure that they're staying involved and continuing with this. This certainly isn't something where you just want to put it out there and get a bunch of maybe pats on the back and rounds of applause and then it fades off into the sunset, right? This is something you want to have some carryover and continue to generate some great experiences for all these guys. Is this something that, too, I guess, if I can ask, is there a personal tie-in for you to this issue that makes it something you're very passionate about?
Yeah, so it all began. Alma played Kalamazoo in a cancer game, which I'd never done before. I guess Coach Couch, I think, did it a ton at Romeo when he was the coach there. And so what Alma did was we donated all the money that we raised because we got new jerseys that we were able to have on the back of them the name of someone we wanted to play for that had cancer.
That's awesome.
Um, and so I played for my good friend Todd Kelsey that had cancer in high school. He's one of my best friends in high school. Thankfully he actually beat it and
There you go.
is
At a boy.
But also, so that came from that, but also just seeing how many people cancer has obviously impacted was just kind of terrible just to see about how guys on the team could pick from 4 to 5 people they were having to play for. And along with
Man.
that,
Yeah.
also, my grandpa passed away from cancer last year. And then one of my old basketball coaches, Steve Ernst, who actually went to Alma, played basketball there,
Man.
is still battling right now. He's putting up a hell of a fight right now. So those were the main 3 people that I really wanted to start this for. And just obviously the cancer game kind of sparked it. And also kind of on a more positive side, I know that's kind of hard to talk
It's
about and
real
stuff.
though. It's real.
Yeah, absolutely. But just as Division 3 athletes, kind of like what you're doing, I'm trying to gather people that may not be the Division 1 level. They're kind of a brotherhood between the Division 3 level and also just quarterbacks in general. I wanted to get us all together, do something good for these high school and middle school kids, and raise money for a good cause.
100%. I had the chance to be a part of a few of those games in high school. That was something that we did it with multiple teams. It was typically against our rival Clarkston, and that was like just a great example of. I don't have any friends at Clarkston. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like nothing, but you come and you play that kind of game, and it's like everyone who shares that experience being a part of a game like that. And like you said, when you have a guy on the team, multiple people on the team, that they have to go home and pick, I've got X amount of people affected in my life by some type of cancer, and they have to actually go make a decision on whose name they have to wear on their back. When it came to that game, what was really special is you had guys that, say, one person was very fortunate and didn't have anyone that in their immediate like friends or family group, whatever, that was affected. They'd wear the name of somebody else that, they've got 2 names they can't put on one jersey. It was just so many great things go into that. And after the game, meeting up with those people, the ones that thankfully are still around and are either still battling or have won some of their fights, like that stuff sticks with you for a long time, dude. Is this something that are you going to limit to D3 quarterbacks? Can we see this expanding to other positions in the future, or are we just working on the launch right now, which would be totally respectable and just that?
Well, so the main focus is really on the launch. I've had ideas about if someone contacted me from other divisions. Honestly, it's kind of a lot on my plate, so I would encourage them to try to do something similar.
Yeah.
Just because there's a lot of stuff that goes into the day-to-day. I have to remind myself constantly, I'm a student athlete. I have to worry about school and then football
Hell
and
yeah.
then project together. But and then also with the other positions, a guy at Platteville, a receiver, Brant Stair, I hope I'm saying that right, actually contacted me. And I think him and Nathan Shackelford from Platteville are going to work together on combining receivers and quarterbacks. I think the idea was a quarterback can bring a receiver for free if he pays the $25. And then if a receiver around the area doesn't have a quarterback, he will then have to pay just $5. Or sorry, I messed that up. If a quarterback brings a
Answer.
receiver, $5. And
There you
then
go.
if yeah, so receivers only have to pay $5.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, right? Because what good is at least I'm not a QB, but what good is a quarterback training session with nobody to throw to? You know what I mean? So that goes hand in hand, and that kind of environment you're making. Also, you're positively affecting more people, getting more people into the fold. That's a great idea, dude. I love it. Sweet, man. Well, we can pivot over. Let's talk about something equally as exciting potentially as your new venture you got going on over there, and something that maybe isn't technically news, but you guys are going over to Scotland, dude. Game 1 on the clock for the Scots, and this is something that has been in the works for a while for you guys. Tell me, the excitement level over there has got to be kind of through the roof right now, dude.
Yeah, it's getting close. April 21st is when we leave. So the day after graduation, where everyone's heading to Scotland. So
Holy shit.
it'll be a lot of fun. We were joking around after we lost to Cortland. We are saying the East Kilbride Pirates are on the clock now. So
I like that. I like that.
bunch of time to scout for it. So it should be a good time. I think a few coaches, such as Coach Couch, might be suiting up. So we'll get to see them in action.
You're kidding.
So no, I because obviously it's not a sanctioned game,
Yeah. Yeah.
and only a limited guys can come. I think Coach Couch and a few other coaches were gonna try to suit up and get in on the action. Probably just one play before they.
No way! I did not know this, dude.
But I
That
think
is
so.
awesome.
It'll be a lot of fun for sure.
That's gonna be pretty sweet, dude. Holy cow! I was not expecting that. That's pretty cool. Have you guys started any spring practice yet?
Yeah, we started spring ball end of last week, so I think we had our second
Good.
practice today.
Okay.
Um, Been going well, especially with the weather. Been really
Yeah.
nice.
I would say
Uh,
we're up here in the dome and obviously spoiled with that, but got to be a great week down there to get outside and play some ball. So just helmets on right now, helmets and cleats, but energy's got to be really good those first couple days, get everything going. What's the feeling around this group of Scots? Obviously, lose some guys to graduation, still haven't brought in that new class coming in the fall, but what's the vibe around town?
it's just putting your head down and getting to work. A few guys are also double or dual sport athletes, so we're losing a few guys
Okay.
there. But I mean, still, we're playing football right now. I don't know what can be more exciting than getting back on the field and strapping your
Right.
helmet with the Scots, your brothers.
Football guy. Talk about the whatever you've got itinerary wise for the trip. Anything, because obviously you guys are going over there to play a football game, but there's so much more that goes into a trip like this than just that fact. So talk to me about what else you guys got going on over across the pond.
No, I mean, we're going everywhere. We have it all scheduled out.
Okay.
I don't really know the day-to-day thing, but I know we're
Yeah.
going hiking quite a few times. I think we're gonna go past, I think it's St. Andrews, the famous golf course.
Okay.
So I don't know if anyone's gonna be able to get on, but
Yeah.
we're going past. I wouldn't be surprised if someone tries to.
And that might be for
Uh,
the best. They keep you boys off those off those holes.
oh yeah, not a good golfer. It's going way left.
That's
But
good.
should
That's
be
good.
fun.
And you said obviously a lot of time to scout. You seen any? Have you guys been watching any film on the? It's East Kilbride, right? The Pirates. Have you watched any
Yeah.
film on them?
We've watched a little, probably not as in depth as any of the actual games, but
Yeah.
we've watched a few games, just here and there, just throw it on in the office, but nothing super in depth. I think Coach Couch mentioned we're gonna on an after party, but we're getting together with their team
Okay.
um,
Very
for
cool.
food, and he made it sound like they were a lot more excited about the afterwards than the actual game. So it should be a really fun time.
Good for you guys, man. That's pretty special. Now, coming off a year and a run that you had last year, you talked about that big win over Mount Union that you said put you guys. You guys were already on the damn map, but that just cemented your spot on it. And tough game to Cortland. That side of the bracket was just ridiculous. What's the pressure like now with a lot of talent coming back, you being on top of that list to go back and do something spectacular again?
I think we talked about this last time. There's no pressure. It's just having fun. We're playing football.
Good.
That's all it
Oh,
is.
yeah.
As a college athlete, you only get 4 last years as an athlete, really. So you just have to go out there, take every day as it's going to be your last, and enjoy the ride because we're playing football.
Good answer. Good answer. One of those games this year, you guys coming up here, making a trip to the Superior Dome in week 3. Definitely an exciting one. Talk about adding a D2 opponent onto your schedule, man. That's going to be. It's not a short trip, but it will be a fun one. And talk about just playing in what is a really sweet venue up here. You're very used to it and take it for granted at times, but the Superior Dome is a dope spot to play.
Do we have to bring turf cleats? Do you know?
I'll give you a little bit of inside information here on the pod, and at least for now, we're supposed to get new turf in the summer. I was recruited here saying we'd have new turf by the time I got here, so that was 4 years
Okay.
ago. But
Yep.
the word on the street is we're getting new turf this summer. If this turf is here when you guys come up, don't wear cleats. Turf shoes 100% of the way, but we'll see. A lot could change between now and then.
Okay, yeah, that's something someone mentioned to me that it's like cement underneath there, which
Yeah.
again, it'll be fun to play in the dome. But I'm not looking forward to having to go buy those 90s
Yep.
shoes. But it'll
We've
be
got
fun.
an interesting deal up here. There's a system where the turf rolls up into this big machine because they use it for all types of different events and boat shows and auto shows and commencements. And dude, there's more non-football that happens in there some weeks of the year than there is anything athletic related. It's kind of ridiculous. It's impressive.
It should be a lot of fun, though. I'm excited. We'll see kind of where we're at as a program, just being able to play a Division II program.
Yeah.
So it should be fun. I think a
And
few guys from UP
absolutely, dude. And I'm
that-
excited to have y'all up here. But that's the thing too that people they're starting to understand a lot more because we've seen a lot of it in the last couple of years. That crossover is so real. There's a lot of really good Division III teams that could beat those NAIA D2 squads. And there's a lot of, the same way with the NAIA to the other leagues. Like the crossover, the gap is not that large. Now, you talk about some of the teams on the higher end of Division II, yeah, you're going to hopefully take care of business against some of those squads, but there's a lot more crossover and parity than people think. So I know you guys are going to make that a really tough contest. I'm excited to be here to see it in person, dude, but that's about all I got for you, man. I'm excited for you, really just happy and proud of you for getting this thing going, and I know to some extent what an undertaking this is, and like you talked about how much it adds onto your plate, and being the kind of the guy that organizes all this, you throw the credit to a lot of these guys, and that's what a great person does, is just really dish out some of the credit and the talk to some of the people that are involved. But this is a lot on your plate, I know that, and really excited to see where it goes, man.
Thanks. If you don't mind, can I shout out just a few select
Absolutely,
guys?
dude. Hey, this is all you.
So the first few guys that helped out were Brandon Bolins from Methodist, Dante Avilas Santos from UMass Dartmouth,
Hell yeah.
and let's see, Jason Sanity from Whitewater. I hope I said all their names right, but those are the main three guys that were the first kind of to get back to me, and really appreciate that. And then also Cooper Mattern from Concordia has raised, I think, already over $750.
You're kidding.
So he's done a huge,
That is
he's done
awesome.
an excellent job. And then along with that, Frank Rossi has done a lot of the Division III coverage stuff. I reached out to him to see if he would help promote it, and he ended up kind of taking me under his wing and showing me how all this stuff kind of works. I know he helps with St. Baldrick's, and so he's done a really good job. And then also going along with that, we've raised already over $2,000. A lot of thanks to Cooper for doing already almost half of that. But
hell yeah, Cooper.
$2,000, and this is really the first week that our website's been up, and I hope that a lot more guys are willing to join. If they want to, please feel free to reach out to me, and we'll get you rolling. So that's
Absolutely.
it. A few plugs there, but really
that's big time, dude. All the information for interested parties, quarterbacks, otherwise will be linked in our description of the video. Also, you'll find it on our social media platforms. We'll get that stuff out there. But hell yeah, dude. That's pretty crazy. 2,000 already. And like you said, this is not even really the target time for you guys. There's a lot more time in the coming months here where people are going to have, these athletes are going to have more time in their hands to get out there and get doing these sessions and really start to make a difference, make an impact.
Yep.
Awesome.
Right. Well, thanks for having me on.
Of course. Hey, like I said, anytime I got an excuse to get you on here, brother, I appreciate that. So thank you for joining me. Have a good one, man. Like I said, won't be the last time we talk.
See you. Awesome. See you then.
See you, brother. All right, thank you, Carter, for joining us. Like I said in the opener, we'll get to some D3 players later with Jimmy and talk about some more prospects. We have covered a few of those. But first, I've got my time here to go over some Division II guys that certainly are poised to make some waves at the next level. And I think, guys, that it's only right I lead with a guy who made a splash this year on the D2 scene, and that is out of West Florida, wide receiver John Giles. This dude, you see the high point right there? He does a hell of a lot of that for the Argos this year. He was an absolute menace for them. Really enjoy the way that he plays the game. You talk about an absolutely athletic freak, the way he's able to have these kind of just wild circus type catches when it comes to aerial, like body control. You see this breakaway speed right there. He also plays with a physicality that I think a lot of wide receivers lack. Just going to talk up all these guys. You see the tape for yourself, though. This guy lines up anywhere in the offense over there for the Argos. You talk about his journey started at Fort Scott, went to Virginia Union, had a couple breakout years there, and then finally really busted on the scene over at West Florida and won a lot of big-time games with the Argos. And a guy that we've had on the show, much in part due to the throwing of Pee Wee Jarrett, is a guy that maybe I won't talk too much about today, but a guy that is also pursuing a professional career. Those two benefited a ton from each other. Obviously, you see all the tape here. That quarterback-wide receiver connection was a good one. Now, back to John. He was named an all-star at the College Gridiron Showcase, which is a good spot for a lot of these smaller school products to go out in kind of a Senior Bowl type setting, competing against other potential prospects and draftees, that kind of thing. He was invited to the Hula Bowl, second-team All-American this year, was also a Harlan Hill nominee. That's pretty wild as a wide receiver. Love to see that. And he was number 12 in the top 25 small school prospects from CBS Sports, which there's another player just in a little bit that we'll talk about that has also made that list. But I will show you guys that one. But that's something that, when you get put into a lot of these different publications, those are just things that raise your draft stock. And you might think that something as little as being mentioned in an article isn't that big of a deal. But for a guy coming out of Division II school to be put on a list with a lot of these other people. That's a big deal for these guys. So this is the announcement right here from West Florida football. It says wide receiver John Giles was named as one of the top 25 small college draft prospects by CBS Sports. And I'll open this up for you to take a look at. But what you'll notice when I say small school products on here, I'm talking about Division II, Division III, and NAIA football players. This small school prospects, most of these guys are not D2, D3, NAIA. We're talking about guys that are FCS players predominantly. Those are technically small schools when it comes to the NFL draft and those kind of things. But you go down this list here and you get down to number 12. I do believe we've got two other athletes that are really small school products on here. One of them is D'Angelo Hardy from North Central, but there he is, John Giles right here. And the blurb here from Emory Henry says that Giles is massively flying under the radar. I was at the College Gridiron Showcase where everything he did from route running to catching the ball looked rather easy. He's got good size at 6'2", 205 pounds, as well as good acceleration to create separation necessary to be successful. Giles was a late call-up to the Hula Bowl and was able to step in and perform well. So all kinds of glowing remarks there about John and his ability to step into some of those things and just make an impact right away. I think that's a really appealing part of his game is he's just made the most out of multiple situations that he's been in. And I think this last season for West Florida, that combo with Pee Wee Jarrett, who's been great in the passing attack over there, under a great offensive mind in Coach Nobles, let's not let that go under the rug either. All of that comes together to kind of be a really convincing case and argument for John Giles coming out of West Florida. We'll actually stay with the Argonauts, believe it or not, for our next player. And I should have asked him. I don't have any film on him currently wearing like the blue and teal or whatever it is. But John McMullen, the defensive lineman from West Florida, is a guy that has certainly made a lot of noise this past year. I had the chance to play with John while he was at Northern, and that's the tape that at least I have of John. But it does not matter what colors this dude is wearing. He has been a dog all throughout college. This man was the Gulf South Defensive Player of the Year in his first year playing in the conference. He was also a first-team All-American, if that means anything to you, which it should. But I think the number one word to describe when it comes to John's play style is just disruption or just destruction, either or. You see it right here. The ability at which he's able to just manhandle opponents. There's a look at him, at least in the West Florida uni right there. But you'll see some tape from back when he's at Northern Michigan. The ability for him, you see the speed at which he comes off the edge. He's been, the knock on him, I think, throughout the years is that maybe he's a little bit undersized when it comes to comparing to some NFL caliber offensive linemen. He has never let that stop him, and his use of his hands, I think, is probably the most impressive thing that I've seen when it comes to John's play style. He's got some of the fastest hands. He also has a really great get off of the line of scrimmage, which cannot be underrated or undersold, but his hands are what separates him from a lot of the competition that he's had to go up against in his last couple of years. Let's look at his stats here from the last year, though. He's listed at 6 foot, 255, so not exactly a small fry, but you talk about a guy who's come off the edge a lot. 6 foot is not the height of a typical defensive end, so he does face some criticism when it does come there. He's played a decent amount of interior defensive line. You see here his ability to get back and just body and manipulate offensive linemen. But right here, look at the stats from this past year. And when it comes down to it, had 51 total tackles, 34 of those were solo, 22 tackles for loss for over 100 yards, and 12 and a half sacks, along with 3 forced fumbles to go with that. 6 QB hurries as well, if you're into that kind of stat. Those things jump off the page, right? I don't care who you're playing, which, by the way, he did play some really solid competition this year in the Gulf South. Those things jump off the page. We mentioned that he was the Gulf South Defensive Player of the Year this year. He's up here training in Marquette at Advantage, being represented by David Greger, who we've had on the show, Bull Rush Sports over there. Going to give him a good shot. And like I said, you watch this film and you see the variability at which he's played really every position on the defensive line front. I'm not sure where exactly he's going to end up or in what kind of scheme or system, but watching this, you can tell the dude's got a ton of upside. Like you talk about those hands, the extremely quick get off, and the physicality at which he plays. Not to mention, he's a smart football player. He understands his assignment, his role in a lot of these plays and these schemes, and I think that's what really sets John apart from the rest, if you will. So there's my endorsement on John. I've had the pleasure of seeing him play in person, and a lot of people have had the misfortune of seeing him play directly when they line up against him. But another dude that is a literal physical freak is a man that we already had one wide receiver on the list today. We're going to add another one to it. Kyle Sheets out of Slippery Rock is a guy that we've also had the pleasure of having on this show. And man, if you have seen any of Kyle Sheets' film, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This dude has the frame of an NFL wide receiver, and to go with that, he's got, you see the separation speed here, and every piece, every tool in the toolbox that you could ask for of a big pro-style wide receiver is in this young man right here. Kyle Sheets does it all for Slippery Rock. He's listed at 6'4", 220 on the roster on the Slippery Rock website, and seeing him play against these defensive backs, I don't even think that's a stretch. You see how he matches up against some of these DBs. He is towering over these guys. And he has done an incredible job. He's a guy, too, I think it's worth noting, that came to Slippery Rock right out of high school, developed physically inside of their strength and conditioning program. Also, really, not that he's reached his ceiling, but he has definitely closed the gap and gotten a lot closer to seeing that full potential in his 4 or 5 years over there developing with the Rock. We know the storied history and tradition that program has. Kyle has just been definitely a piece of that. You talk about some of the records he has in that storied program, given that, with that being said, he's 3rd in program history in career touchdown receptions, 4th in career receiving yards, 7 in receptions, 13th in total touchdowns. You just go down the list, right? 2-time All-PSAC West. He was a first-team All-Region selection and a consensus All-American. For those of you who don't know who that means, it means everyone said this dude is the best of the best. AFCA, AP, D2, CCA, and Don Hanson. All 4 of them, right? To have that happen, I don't know if you realize how impressive that is. We don't really see a lot of that at the D2 level, or I guess just any level in general. This dude was able to amass some pretty great accolades. And when you look at the stats for him throughout this year, it looks like here, throughout the career, I should say, this year he caught almost 1,200 yards and 17 touchdowns, which was his best year by far. Over his career, though, he has tallied over 150 catches for over 2,400 yards, 29 tuds, and an average per catch of 15.8. I think any wide receiver in the country would take those stats in a heartbeat. He was averaging 85 yards per game this last year, was a big-time red zone threat. Obviously, when you're that height, it comes into play that they're going to target you when they get down into the scoring zone there, the gold or the red zone, depending on what kind of scheme you're in. So shout out to Kyle. Also on that top 25 small school prospect list from CBS Sports, so I'll be sure to read that blurb real quick for you. And then I have one more thing to mention when it comes to Slippery Rock and that wide receiver room. But the blurb here on CBS says that Sheets was a legit machine and a big play deep threat at Slippery Rock. The 6'2", 222-pound wideout has above average acceleration to separate from defenders and the ability to track the ball well. He left a very good impression on scouts in attendance at the College Gridiron Showcase. Another guy that's taken advantage, of a lot of these opportunities to go out and compete against these guys in a lot of different fashions. But this is a really cool piece that I wanted to finish on before we stopped and moved on from Kyle. And this is from their wide receiver coach over there at Slippery Rock. Take a look at this. The only wide receiver duo in the country over 1,100 yards each. Both developed out of Slippery Rock, out of high school, and both are now going to have opportunities at the next level. Kyle Sheets and Cohen Russell, man. That is one of the coolest stats in Division II. And he's right. The only wide receiver duo in the country with over 1,100 yards each. Those two, I believe, are both top 5 or top 10 in the country. And to have a duo like that, and they've got a dude over there in Braden Long who can sling the freaking rock too. That helps, obviously. But You see the rankings and some of the stats from their passing attack this last year. Over almost 4,000 yards through the air, first in the PSAC. Touchdown catches also first in the league. All of those first in the league. Yards per game, completion percentage, 41 points per game. And that's just the passing attack, by the way. These guys were a big part of that. Kyle Sheets was a huge part of that. I wanted to make sure I mentioned that before we moved on, because I think as a team, that is such a cool award. And as a coach, too, to have these guys that you bring out of high school and you cultivate and turn into, because of them and also because of coaching, there's obviously that balance, turn into just these monsters, man, that are ready to go play at the next level. I think that's a post that any coach across the country is willing to hang their hat on. That's pretty special. We will move on, though, from Kyle, and we'll move on to a guy that got, I believe is the only one on this list, that got an invite to the NFL Combine. And I would show you the actual 40-yard dashes that he had. I'm going to talk about him a little bit, but I can't show those because of copyright. Or else I won't be able to, have his video up. But you can go ahead and search those up elsewhere on your own and find those ones. This man, though, Willie Drew, is a corner from Virginia State that has made a lot of noise here in just the last couple months. You're going to watch the film here and you will understand exactly why. Willie, like I said, like I mentioned earlier, did get a invite to the Combine. You'll see some of the clips from his game tape here. And some interesting pieces about Drew is that he started at James Madison before he made the transfer over. He was the CIAA Defensive Player of the Year this year in the conference, showed out at the Senior Bowl, so was also invited there, made a lot of really good plays, and was the only man on this list invited to the NFL Combine. What's cool about that also, Willie was actually only one of 2 HBCU players that was invited to the Combine. He's from Virginia State. The other guy was an offensive lineman from, I believe, Howard, I want to say, which is the D1 FBS squad. His 240 times, I mentioned them earlier. We're talking a 4.48 and a 4.47 for the kid. That's pretty good. Anything sub 4.5 and you are in business, you're talking about a legit draft stock potential. Now, not the biggest guy in the world. At a position, though, where that isn't nearly as important as you talk about some of these other spots that we've mentioned on this list already. On the roster here for the Trojans, he's listed at 6 foot 185. So certainly not a bad frame on him. He isn't maybe the thickest in the world, but he's got a frame where he can put a little bit of weight on. Right now, though, you look at the playmaking ability that he has. An absolute ball hawk, I think, in all terms of the word. We talked about ball tracking skills earlier on with some of the wide receivers. You know, great defensive backs have that same capability as well. He showcases it, I think, in a lot of this film right here. Flies around the field, very instinctual. Not the most physical defensive back you've ever seen, but this dude flies around and just flat out makes plays. His speed, his acceleration, playmaking ability. He's going to have a bunch of different opportunities at the professional level. Well, whether that's in the NFL or not, who knows? But this is a guy that should certainly be on a lot of boards heading into April and heading into draft season. I know a lot of people that are fans of small school football are really excited to see what Willie has going on here shortly. We can pivot, though, and go back to the offensive side of the ball. I love talking about these guys after we've had them on the show. We have not had the pleasure of having Willie on here, but this next guy we're going to talk about, we have had the pleasure of having him join the show. That is Devin Garrison, a.k.a. the Unicorn, widely regarded as the top tight end, the premier tight end in Division II football. This dude has done a lot for the Pittsburgh State Gorillas over there. And you'll take one look at this and kind of understand where I'm coming from with that. And like I said, regarded as probably the best tight end in D2 football, there are some other guys that certainly could be in that conversation as well. But when you look at this film, I'm going to rewind that so you can take a look at just a couple of these catches one more time. Please take a look at this first one. And again, one hand's always pretty, but catch it with two, I don't give a shit. Look at the catches this dude is able to make. And one, the wingspan on this human is incredible. It is wild. The quickness that somebody that is 6'6", 240 pounds, they should not be able to exhibit this kind of quickness and quick twitch energy. You see breaking off the routes and things of that nature. My goodness. I would by no means, again, say that this guy is a bruiser maybe by any means of the word, but there's so many. We'll talk later about a guy and Alex Larson at the D3 level. Not every tight end needs to be this inline sixth offensive lineman. Devin is a great example of a guy who functions really as just a gigantic wide receiver. And you can put him in line and have him block. He has those kind of capabilities. That's not exactly the bread and butter of his game. But you know, coming from a program with a tradition and the history of Pittsburgh State and the style of football they play over there, they win and lose games in the trenches. He's been a part of a lot of downhill, dominant run games. And this dude does it all. Like, he really does it all. He came in from Iowa Western Community College before he was with the Gorillas, and we've had the pleasure of just watching him turn into the player that he is today. Really incredible. 44 career receptions for the Gorillas at Pittsburgh State. By the time he got there, 726 yards, 9 tuds. And that was before this year, I do believe. Yes, so we got his final career stats here pulled up from their website. 97 catches, almost 1,600 yards, 15 tuds for the kid. That's incredibly impressive. And we're averaging over 16 yards per catch with him too. Another great number right there. So Devin Garrison certainly does it all. He's a guy that needs to be on a lot of different boards. And when I mentioned the fact that the dude is 6'6", 240 pounds, and you watch that tape and see what he's able to do, that's textbook definition of a tight end and what that position has turned into, and a unicorn, because there's not a lot of guys at that size and that height that can move and exhibit the quickness that he is able to do. So he was a big part of Pittsburgh State's success. They were very close to going on an even further run this last year, if it wasn't for Grand Valley. And speaking of the Lakers, let's talk about one of our D1R athletes. That's Abe Swanson, the man that played middle linebacker for a star-studded Grand Valley State defense. This dude, I think, to me, what stands out about Abe is he's the epitome of a sideline-to-sideline type of player. Abe is a dude that is not the biggest dude in stature. I never even realized that until I stood right next to him. You watch this dude play with a level of physicality and just confidence you would never even notice. And I remember standing next to him the first time, I'm like, dude, like, you play like you're 6'4", 250. Like, that's just the kind of style this dude plays with. And that's certainly going to be a knock on him going to the next level, but there's so many other redeeming qualities about Abe that I think he's going to overcome it because he's done that in the past, right? That's not something that's going to allow him to hold him back. You look at the senior stats, I guess just look at some overall stats from Abe over the years. Listed at 6'1", 222, senior out of St. Charles, Illinois, and this dude did it all for Grand Valley. Let's look at the defensive statistics here on the season. 90 tackles, and he had 10 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, a fumble recovery, and then also tallied 3 interceptions. That's big time. 3 pass breakups as well, a couple quarterback hurries in there. Dude filled the stat book across the board and did all of it against some really good competition. When he had his best game, you see the highlights here. Teams like Ferris State, Harding, Pittsburgh State, these kind of squads that are top 5, top 10 in the country, that's when he's coming out and performing at his best. Even squads like Davenport and the GLIAC, which is a perennial contender, right? Like those kind of teams, that's where Abe steps up the most. And I said it earlier, he's a sideline-to-sideline guy that is just incredibly quick, and I think what is going to separate him at the next level is his ability to make plays in space. He's played against a lot of really great athletes that are shifty in their own right. His ability to close the distance and make plays on those guys, I think, is what's really going to give him a good shot at the next level. But I could talk all day about that dude. I've appreciated him coming on the show, him being a part of this D1R athlete kind of movement that we've started, and just everything about him. Abe Swanson's a first-class human, and I'm excited to see where he ends up. He knows he's got a couple fans in us over at D1 Rejects over here. With that being said, we'll finish off with one more D1R athlete for today before we go over to the Division III players, and that is the ball hawk from Ferris State, also in the GLIAC. That's Sean Stevens, and Sean is a guy that bust onto the scene, especially when it comes to the GLIAC. He was at West Liberty last year where he led the nation in interceptions. And you see here, man, This dude, that's what he built. He's built his brand on, right? Is interceptions and being able to go and steal the ball from opposing offenses. That's what Sean does best, and that's what he's been able to do at a very high level, whether it be for West Liberty or whether it be for Ferris State. This guy had offers to go play at Colorado and Purdue before his NCAA eligibility was called into question and was not able to take that jump to the D1 level. So what does he do? He goes to one of the powers, the reigning defending national champions in Division II, and is able to do a lot for them, became a big part of their squad this last year, and I think what he's been able to do with them is nothing short of incredibly impressive. You look at his stats, this year, and 8 interceptions, 19 solo tackles. He had 25 total and 1 pick six. That was a big time play as well. But like I said, when you have a guy that has built his brand around being able to take away the football from the opposing team's offense and win that turnover battle for his squad, no matter what colors he's suiting up in, going to give him a really good chance at making it to the next level. He's got connections with his cousin, who is actually, I believe, who is currently with the Steelers. But Sean has a ton of upside. Talk about a guy, too, that is still got to get to, like, he's not even anywhere near his ceiling. He's AFCA All-American this last year, obviously All-Conference. He was one of the players of the year in the GLIAC Conference, which in itself is a really awesome accolade to achieve. But Sean, one of those guys that has a lot of really good football left to be played. So we'll have more guys next week that we'll evaluate when it comes to D2 level. Some more D1R athlete guys too as well. I mean, I got to get those guys on there and show them some respect. But we will have more of a list. Per usual, though, if you know there's some guys out there that I missed, please include them in the replies, the comments, DM me, hit me up on socials, whatever it is. If there's guys out there that I'm missing, let me know. I'm going to get them on here. With that being said, let's move over and talk some D3 ball with Jimmy Martin. We'll move over to another, albeit former Division III quarterback. Jimmy, what's up, brother?
How we doing?
Splendid, brother. Glad to have you on here. We are going to talk today. We mentioned it last week. We did some D3 prospects that have a chance to go pro, whether that is the NFL, the UFL, the AFL, or we'll talk about even in another league today that technically I believe is also the AFL. But that aside, we've got some more guys we wanted to break down and discuss when it comes to prospects. And I'll lead it with the thing that we said last week. There's probably more guys that deserve to be on this list. We just went through. We want to divide it up into multiple episodes. 1, so we have content every week and we continue to spit some stuff out for you guys to take in. But 2, because there are more deserving guys that deserve to be recognized on here. And we're gonna start breaking down some of them. And I guess we'll start at 2. We realized not a lot of defensive guys on last week's list, huh?
Yeah.
And by not a lot,
we might have dropped the ball with that one. Maybe a little bit of offensive bias. I mean, that Kobe and I both played offense. Maybe we slipped up a little bit. But now we got some defensive guys today, though. So for all the defensive guys out there, we got you now. So, but again, if we don't have someone, you think someone's worth it, let us know. Like, that's our job to do this. Like, we're always looking for more guys to talk about. So
yeah, man, and we can start this thing off with a player that Frank Rossi and the guys over at that in the huddle are incredibly high on, and that's Caleb Harmel from Trinity, this linebacker that you can kind of read the blurb that Frank Rossi put out on Twitter there. He had been in my ear like during the season, just talking to me, Kobe, this is a guy that I have not seen the likes of him play football, basically, is what he was telling me. And this is a guy that has a real shot to play at the next level, whether it be his size and some of his measurements, just the way that he plays the game. They have endorsed this guy greatly. He's won a lot of awards. They're not the only ones that are high on this linebacker, but Jimmy, I don't have too much video of him. We've got one clip from their playoff game against North Central, but tell me about it. What is it about Caleb that has people thinking he's got a really good shot at the next level?
Okay, so it's interesting because I see all these accolades like first team All-American, Cliff Harris Award finalist, 2-time All-American, da-da-da. What really stands out to me is that he was Dave Campbell's Texas Football All-Magazine All-Texas sub-FBS team in 2022.
Yeah.
So to anyone that's not necessarily familiar with that, that's all levels of football, including Division I FCS and Division II. So there's guys up there, linebackers in Division II FCS that he essentially outcompeted to get the All-Texas sub-FBS team. And I think that's incredibly impressive, 1, because he's in Division III and there's 2 levels ahead of him, but 2, Texas is really, really good at football. And the fact that a Division III linebacker made the all non-FBS team is just wildly impressive to me. That really stands out to me. Obviously, like the Conference Player of the Year awards and the All-Americans is really impressive as well, but that one was like, whoa. Like this cat can play.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And that might seem like something that isn't an incredible achievement because it's not coming from, I don't know, like an AP, Associated Press or D3Football.com or whatever it is, more like the national kind of publications. But when you do talk about the depth of football just in that state alone, and all the players that come out of that, that's something that you have to take very seriously. Like, this guy has brought in some of these kind of abnormal accolades. Talk about Justin Blazek here in a second, and he made the freaks list. Talk about just a weird accolade and something that he didn't even know was a thing until he was actually put on the list earlier. I believe that was last year. But those things are all great reasons as to why these guys should all be recognized. When you talk about some of the stats from Caleb, I think that also is where he really does separate himself from a lot of the rest of the pack. You can see right here, finished the season with 75 total tackles, 15 for loss, 5 sacks. He had 3 picks, 9 PBUs, a forced fumble, and did score an offensive touchdown off a fake punt, if you knew that one. Bit of a tidbit for you there. Again, this is from our friends over in the huddle.
Yeah, man. He's just a heck of a. I mean, when you throw in the touchdown too, I didn't even know about that. Like,
yeah, that's pretty wild.
Funny, man. Yeah, that's good stuff. That's good stuff.
I love that.
Yeah,
but as it stands, looking at his the roster here, we kind of take a look at the size and some of the stuff with these guys, because that's obviously what they're measured on. Listed at 6 foot, 218. So decent size, not anything that's seriously going to jump off the sheet. But that's not where a lot of these guys are going to fall into those categories. You have some of those physical freaks that are going to show up to things like the combine and these pro days, and they're going to show out and give you big flashy numbers. There's only a very certain percentage of guys that really applies to. For the vast majority of the rest of the players, D3 or D1 otherwise, those aren't guys that are going to go out and give you some flashy, crazy number in the 40 or on the bench press or things like that. But it's all about the film that they have and some of those accolades and just the connections. All you have to do is impress one guy, right? And then he gets in the ear of somebody who maybe makes some decisions at the next level.
Yeah, it takes one person to change your life. Especially in these kinds of situations. It's like, we got talking about it last week. Sometimes like a GM will just have like a last second like gut feeling about a guy, and hey, any of these guys can be that guy that
Jake Witt
takes a chance on. Jake Witt.
Great example.
Last week,
Great example.
And
we
like
can move on, though, to a guy in your conference that I know we definitely should have been in our week 1, but hey, we're here. Better late than never. The man from over at Platteville, dude, Justin Blazek, he has been a stud for multiple years, and he has the accolades to show for it.
Also, by the way, notable, he's a local Chicago kid, Naperville. I shouldn't say Chicagoland. So he's from Naperville.
Okay.
So he's from around my parts as well. Obviously, named to the East-West Shrine Bowl. I mean, that's probably the lowest thing I hear on his list. He's been 2-time All-American, nominated for the All-State AFC Good Works team. So he's a good dude. He's doing things outside the field. We want to note that for sure. Obviously, this year was probably his best year. 9 sacks. 17 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 picks. And 2 picks from the DN position is pretty impressive, if you ask me.
And you just saw in the film here, Pim pick up one of those and take it to the crib. So those are big-time plays, too.
Yeah, he was a pain to prepare for, being a Blue Devil. We never liked playing against that kid. I can tell you that right now. You could say all you want, like, oh, faceless opponent. Yes, faceless opponent, sure. But when Justin Blake's lining up on the other side, And also, these stats are just as impressive because he's going up against really, really good offensive linemen. He's going up against guys like Michael Bertoya, Luke Mertens. Like there's really good offensive tackles in this league that he's going against, and he's having success. So
also getting some really good film against a team like Michigan Tech at the next level. There's one of the interceptions he had. But I thought that was worth noting, too. You get some of these higher-level teams on the schedule. Those are great opportunities. We see it right here. Those are great opportunities for guys to go out there and get film against maybe a tougher caliber opponent, which we know the WIAC stacks up pretty well. But for someone on the outside looking at film against a Division II team when you're evaluating a D3 prospect, that's a great way to see how he scales, right? And he obviously has performed well in those situations. A stat that isn't shown, and we saw it earlier in the tape here, is picks forced, I guess maybe would be the stat. He comes through and just lays out a quarterback. That ball turns into a duck and ends up in the hands of one of his fellow defenders. They got him dropping back into coverage here like he's Aiden Hutchinson, bats away a pass. The dude is, again, use the word, he is a freak. That's why he made the list. He's freaky athletic, and he's got the build and the size to play at the next level.
Yeah, like obviously, I would like to imagine. This is an assumption. I've had to imagine he had to have some preferred walk-on Division I offers, maybe even like Division II scholarship offers. And so sometimes like they're just kids out of high school. They're like, okay, like I could go here, go to U of I, I could go here, and walk on and maybe play, or I can go to Platteville and be an absolute stud and give myself a chance to play in the pros. It's like some guys just want to play right away, and some guys want to wait and go to play Division I, and that's fine, that's great. But I mean, a guy like Blazek, you got to imagine he could have played at a much higher level than Division III, but he wound it up there because he wanted to play, and it worked out really, really well for him.
100%, man. I talk about that size and that build that he has is something that's going to be certainly a good piece for him. He's 6'5", 245 out of Naperville, too, Illinois, which you can imagine seeing him suiting up in a couple different colors, what that might have looked like, which would have been wild. But that's a good frame. Like 6'5", 245 to come off the edge, that's something that will stack up. It's not, again, not jumping off any sheet, especially when you compare it to some of these Division I guys, but that's more than enough where it's checking a box. And I think that's just as important as maybe showing out in any certain combine or pro day drill or putting up a certain number. Just checking a box, right? Because all you need if you're a guy coming from this level is one reason for someone not to believe in you or to have a knock on you. So every box per se, you kind of get what I'm saying, like checking each box. As long as you go along the way and check each box, you don't have to be superb at each. That's at least going to get your foot in the door. And that's what's frustrating for a lot of these guys. If they are an inch or two too short or a couple pounds too light, a tenth of a second too slow, he seems to check a lot of those boxes. That's not going to get you on a team, but it's not going to keep you off one. Is that a good way of saying that?
100%, certainly.
I kind of felt that way. And so that's really good for him. He's got, talk about a back-to-back defensive player in the year in a conference like the WIAC, dude. That is no easy feat. This dude has certainly earned it year in and year out. But we will flip over to the other side of the ball and talk a little bit more offensively. This time, though, we'll go to the tight end position over at St. John's. It's Alex Larson, excuse me. And I'll just put the tape on, Jim, and you'll see exactly what I guess everyone else will see exactly what we already know.
Yeah. This is also one of those where we just dropped the ball last week. We just missed this guy. And I don't know how, because when I'm looking at it now, like 3-time All-American, now we're going over his career stats, 171 receptions, 2,097 yards and 30 touchdowns. And he's been an All-American the last 3 years. Like, I have no idea how we missed this last week. He's probably sneaking up as the favorite probably now to actually get a shot. I mean, I'm looking at it now. It's like tight end, 6'7". Just, I mean, another one of those like freaks, if you will. Like 6'7", 260. Fast, can block. Like I don't know, man. I think obviously D'Angelo Hardy is also this is like 1A, 1B, if you will. A guy
6'7", 240 is listed as on the roster.
Yeah. I have a feeling he's gonna gain a little bit of weight. That's just a hunch.
Just a hunch
there. Just a hunch.
Yeah, and the thing is, too, you look at him and his play style, like he's not exactly. He certainly can block and he can be physical. He's got that part of his game, but I would not call him by any means, like any stretch of the word, a bruiser, right? Like he has room to put that weight on, and I would assume that'll be an area potentially, depending on the scheme, that a team might want to have him bulk up and put on that weight, but they might take him much closer to as he currently is, and they like that skill set, how he can fit into an offense, because we've seen the tight end position be utilized just in so many different ways, right? So maybe that's not exactly what they need. You don't know. Yeah,
and again, kind of like similar to last week where I was talking about how I watched like Lacrosse's offense because I had the film. I also had the film of St. John's because they played Whitewater this year.
Yeah.
I mean, this team was just, you could just tell he was standing out. He like, who is this tight end? Like, what's going on here? Who's this playmaker? So,
100%. Yeah, man, sure. He's got, like all these guys, I mean, he's got all the accolades to go along with it, and a guy that just obviously deserves to be on this list. And you look at over 2,000 yards there in the career, 3-time All-American.
Just consistency. That's just the word there. It's just consistency. Year after year after year after year. He's just really, really good. Elite, if you will.
So. What makes, and not a guy that's on our list, but what makes that even more ridiculous, you look at a guy like Colin Brunstein from the Blue Boys in Illinois College. He had that many yards in 1 year, and I think that starts to really put it into perspective what they've been able to do over there. We had Destin Chance on the quarterback a little while back, and guys that aren't on our list maybe, but have put up just video game numbers. I think I took one look at that and just realized for me how that put it into perspective, the kind of year that they had over there. I thought that was at least worth mentioning, man.
Yeah, I really wish I had the film to watch Illinois College's offense. I mean, hopefully one of our non-conference opponents plays them this year so I can watch it, because I'll just sit there and I would be all over that. So
there's a man on the offensive line that I know I really hadn't heard of until recently, and I'll have to shout out our friends over at Draft Diamonds for putting this one up on our Twitter, but Scott Oxner from SUNY Brockport is a name that I was certainly not familiar with, but one that it appears there are a good amount of people familiar with, and he plays offensive line the right way. His coaches all speak glowingly about him. He also has the size to do it. He's 6'8", 310 pounds, Jimmy. This dude, like I said, we aren't familiar with him. Guess what? We are now, because this man is a beast, and just like everyone else, the film kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah, I mean, being 6'8", 310, you're gonna open some eyes. You're gonna walk through the door and be like, everyone's gonna be like, who's that?
That checks more than a box.
Monstrosity of a human being. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, checking the boxes. Yeah, right. Just perfect way to put it.
That blew up the box.
Yeah, getting opportunities at Buffalo and Syracuse for pro days. So look for this kid to maybe make some noise just purely from a size point of view, and obviously from a talent point of view as well. But talking about like a high ceiling kind of guy is like, this is like where a pro prospect is like, okay, 6'8" might be a little bit of a project, maybe D3, like who knows, but he's 6'8", 310. Like, let's give this kid a shot. Like, let's throw him on the practice squad. Let's, you never know. Like, another thing, it's just late round. Like, you want to take a chance on a guy because he's 6'8". Like, I don't know. I like Scott's chances here. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. And the biggest thing for him is just going to be playing with that large center of gravity, and something that against a lot of these opponents you watch here in the film that are just much smaller in stature than him, can he continue to be low and get underneath some of these opponents and not have that height and that size become almost a disadvantage for him? There'll be a lot of question marks, but I'm certainly willing to bet there's an offensive line coach at the next level out there that would love to get their hands on a kid like this, because if there's one thing he doesn't lack, Jimmy, it's physicality, and that's something you can't teach. Mm-hmm. He goes out of his way to search down and just finish these blocks. You see a great example of it right there. And those kind of intangibles you have to have. Everyone has them at the next level. Checks the box. But like I said, I think a big thing for him will be staying low and that athleticism of being able to engage against blockers. He's had a lot of experience, the guys that don't really compare to him size-wise. So how does he match up against some of these other prospects? It'll be really interesting to see. And I think pro days are great to get those numbers and for a big guy like him to see how he moves. But that's where some of these like senior bowls and showcases and those kind of things, I'd really like to see his tape from any of those if he's got it, to see where he matches up against maybe some recruits or some prospective draftees at bigger spots.
Yeah, no, certainly. I mean, obviously it'd be kind of interesting to see him block a guy come off the edge, like from Bama or like LSU or something, you know what I mean? Just to see where he matches up with them. Yeah, of course.
But definitely, like you said, you have to mention the two pro days, Buffalo, Syracuse. And also, I while we're on it, I'll mention J.J. Lapp, Cole Burgess, the two wide receivers we saw from Cortland this year that were just deadly, along with Zach Boyes over there under center for the Red Dragons. They will both be at the Buffalo Pro Day as well, so wanted to shout out those guys. That's going to be a big-time showing for, it appears, multiple D3 athletes, and those are coming up very soon. I had the dates written down here, I do believe. Yes. So the Buffalo Pro Day is this Thursday. So this comes out on Wednesday. It'll be tomorrow as you're listening to this. And then Syracuse, at least Oxner will be going to Syracuse on Monday. So, dude, talk about a week. Like, that's like they talk about it like it's the biggest job interview of your life. So they talk about the combine and pro days and those kind of things. Yeah. Saginaw Valley, in terms of Division II, just hosted their own pro day with a lot of their own guys. I believe 11 Cardinals and then other D2, D3 players. So they gave a great opportunity up over there in Saginaw for some of those guys to get the recognition that they deserve, getting in front of a bunch of pro scouts. Saginaw and Grand Valley and the GLIAC have both done a good job of kind of putting their athletes out and getting some of those things taken care of. But Jimmy, we can talk about a Blue Devil finally, and a guy that I know you're excited to talk about. Tell me about Cannon, dude, and another guy in the defensive backfield that I certainly was not. I'm not going to act like I was familiar with, but this guy's already proven it. And talk about what he's got going on right now.
Yeah, so Cannon's got an interesting story. So he was actually a high school quarterback. Got to stout, and then obviously ended up sticking with safety. And I think he made the right choice here because he's the school record holder for tackles, by the way. Just an interesting stat for you. 310 tackles at safety. So let's really think about that. 8 picks career, 3-time All-WIAC. He had 18 tackles against Oshkosh this season in one game.
That's impressive. Again, at the safety position, which is
a
double-edged sword because that's great, but also if your safety's making 18 tackles, Could be tough.
Yeah, I mean, I know, I get it, but like
Could be
still,
tough.
I mean, that's just the wild stat. I mean, the kid
It is
just
wild.
he just flies all over the field, and then he's played. Yeah, he lays the. Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that you're seeing these like crunches, like on.
Yeah.
And it happens sometimes in practice too. I might have been on the receiving end of a few of those. Yeah. So, he's going to play in Austria for the Swarco Raiders. So
There you go.
Look for him to make some noise out there out in Europe. I mean, anywhere this kid goes, he's going to succeed. I mean, he's just an absolute ball hawk.
Dude,
Big hitter. I mean,
physical
hey,
as shit.
maybe he'll play a little bit of quarterback over there too. Who knows? He's got a
You
really
think?
good arm.
He still got it?
Oh, he's still got it. Yeah, for sure.
He
I
flies
don't
around.
know
Man.
if he
You
can
talk
sling it. I
about
don't know if he can
just
sling it like me. I don't know if he can sling it like me, but he can play.
Yeah. Dude, it just looks instinctual. You talked about the physicality earlier on, and I mentioned the AFL earlier. I wasn't talking Arena League. We're talking over in Austria, which is something that for a guy like him to get any opportunity is great. And good for him for deciding, like, hey, I'm just going to – it sounds like he's already committed to this right now. He probably looked at some of his other options, said this is probably the best landing spot for me right now, and is taking advantage of an opportunity overseas, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, certainly. And then obviously, if he has a big season, maybe it's CFL calls, and maybe who knows. So,
there's certainly levels.
He's proven it
man,
for a long time, and he's played a really high level for his whole career in college. So I mean, I'm glad he's getting an opportunity.
Good for him, man. Yeah, good for Cannon, dude. That's a dope ass name too, by the way. I probably
Cannon Grinder. Yeah, he just sounds like a football player, right?
Yeah, the fact that someone just threw an interception to Cannon is like makes it pretty badass. But yeah, I could watch this kind of tape all day, dude. He's flying around.
His partner in crime, Mason Preview, is also a hell of a player as well. That's our safety. So obviously we're really lucky with two really good safeties last year. So
that's big time, dude. Sweet. Well, I think that's all the guys we got for today, Jim. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah.
Awesome. A lot of guys that, like you said, could have been on first week. They made it second week. We're not ranking these guys. We're just putting them all up there and kind of showing them off and trying to put them on that pedestal, give them that platform, man, because that's what we're all about. But it's always fun to break down some more of these guys. And what are we going to say? If there's more guys you want us to take a look at next week, man, throw them in there because I like talking about them. I like learning about a lot of these guys before we do the show, doing the research and finding out about them, whether it is on or off the field. But I think we've put together a pretty good list so far, dude. And now the fun part is going to be in a month or two to check back in and see what's going on with all these guys, if they're still pursuing football and where they've ended up, right?
Yeah, it'd be cool that, if we had like a clip of one of us saying like, oh, he's going to go here, he's going to go there, and then posted it, like call up flaming hot takes, like, oh, these guys were on it in like February. March.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna go that far. That'd be like calling a, I don't even know what. That'd be pretty wild.
Lottery tickets, right?
Yeah, that'd be pretty wild. But no, I mean it's not a reach to say we do believe these guys are gonna get chances. So this is there's your take. Like right now, before anyone else is on them, like we know about these guys and we're excited to see where they end up, dude.
Yes, sir. Always.
Sweet. All right, Jimmy. I appreciate you, dude. As always, thanks for coming on, chatting, talking a little ball.
Right on, baby. I'll see you soon.
Absolutely. See you, Jim. All right, thank you, Jimmy, for covering some D3 talk with me. We're gonna close tonight out on what is just an awesome, heartwarming story, and it's not in the football world. It's in the Division II basketball world. This is D1 Rejects, not D1R football, right? We can talk about whatever we want on here. This story, I'll tell you a little bit about it, and we're just going to watch the video and react to it. It's a special, very special senior night surprise. Jordan Collier is a grad transfer from Utah. He's now at Westchester in Pennsylvania. They're in the PSAC, and I don't even really want to tell you anything more, but just for context, let me tell you this. Jordan's parents, he's from Kingston, Jamaica. They've never seen him play a college basketball game before. That is until senior night, and then this scene unfolded. That is awesome. Parents come out and surprise him on senior day. So you see the clip, and I'll let it play for you, and I've actually got another angle that I'll show you, but with some more context, like I kind of told you in the beginning, man, his parents had never seen him play college basketball. The team surprised them. The parents surprised them. They fly from Jamaica to Pennsylvania, across the pond, over to the U.S., and they show up for their son in his senior night. And that's just like, this is what sports is about, man. This is just a cool piece. It's about family. It's about coming together, and you see the emotions are all over his face. I get emotional just watching it, just talking about it. The emotions are so raw and so pure, and I think that's what just makes sports and moments like these so special. This is another angle from the Westchester Athletic Department that we can take a look at. Here's Jordan getting his picture when they're doing kind of the senior day festivities at half court. And you'll notice a bunch of people went out there with him, right? It's not just he went out there by himself, because his parents, I'm sure he didn't think were going to show up. And yet, here they come, man, around the corner. This is a great angle, too, right here, to see the reaction from everyone. All of his teammates there to support him. The faculty and people who have made this year for him at Westchester what it was, I'm assuming, was a special year. Love to get the chance to know him and talk to him on the show if we can, but man, like, what a surreal and special moment. If you're Jordan, if you're anyone involved in this basketball program, that's just got to be so neat. So neat, so unique, and gosh, that's so cool, man. That is incredible. Shout out to Westchester for making that happen. And also to Jordan. The dude is a hell of a player. When you look at the things that he's been able to do on the actual basketball court, I'll pull up the story and kind of give you some cliff notes as well. What's really neat is that when they showed up, he put on a double-double on senior night. That wasn't his first. It was his 17th double-double of the season. He scored 13, grabbed 12 boards. The Rams won 84-63 over Bloomsburg, which is also important. But, man, I don't think he cared what the final score was. The dude performed well, obviously, but that made his night, and it was just really cool. So it sounds like here, the idea was originally hatched in part with Rams head coach Damian Blair during the fall, and it was coordinated by Westchester assistant coach Ben Kay. But it was also, they say it may have not been made possible without their AD, Terry Beatty, signing off on it. Also, the assistant athletic director of compliance, Deirdre Bertotti, I'm hopefully saying that correctly, their steadfast commitment to get the NCAA to allow Westchester to finance the trip. And if you're the NCAA, man, like, I know people rip on the NCAA a lot, man. They do make some really special stuff happen like this. They're able to go out and finance this trip, which turned out to be such a special moment for, I'm assuming, what is a special young man. Talk about Jordan's journey a little bit. Came to the United States from Kingston, Jamaica when he was 16, and he attended Redemption Christian Academy in Troy, New York. Got recruited to play at Utah. So after a year of junior college, transferred to Siena, where he received undergraduate degree in business. Had one more year of eligibility left. That's when he found Westchester, and going from D1 to D2, he said he thought it was going to be easy, thought it was going to be a cakewalk, but it was not. I had to earn this, he said. I had to go back to my character where I get it and who I am as a person. I get that from them, my parents. I learned from my mother how to treat people good, no matter who they are or what they do. I learned about hard work from my father. And it says here, in the years since leaving Jamaica, Jordan would speak to his parents through Zoom calls and WhatsApp. The missing piece was that his mother and father never saw their son play basketball in the United States until senior day in his last game. Just like that. That's worth 1,000 words, man. 1,000 words. So crazy. And there's other details on here. There's an article on the NCAA website that goes a little bit more into depth, but I just wanted to give you guys the cliff notes and just let you share that moment because I thought it was so special. So shout out to Jordan, shout out to Westchester, the coaching staff, the athletic department, and also the NCAA for making a trip like this happen, being able to finance this. There are some things in sport that just transcend everything else. This is certainly one of them. I'll leave you with that for tonight. Thank you for tuning in to D1 Rejects. I've been your host, Kobe Manzo. Thank you very much for tuning in.